So what is tarot all about? Tarot is a portal to better understanding between the physical and the spiritual plane. I've been reading tarot for over 30 years now. It was introduced to me by a neighbor down the road from my grandparents. And as I went through life, we go through our common struggles, I kept on referring to it. And then when I would go through major struggles, I specifically remember first turning to it when I couldn't get answers about my first divorce. That's always a troubling time, but unfortunately I was a bit young at that point. And unfortunately, I was sort of dismissed by a whole lot of people because I was young. And therefore, I wasn't getting any guidance. Now, unfortunately, or fortunately, either way, when people can't get guidance, they'll turn to anything. I kept on looking for help. And one of the things I finally got help from was just turning inward, to be honest. The more I used tarot over the years, the more I realized what it was really about. And it's really about us. Now that I see clients, I probably do about 4 to 5 readings a week. And the majority of them, especially when they come to see me the first time, kind of come at it in the classic sense of what can I get? What can these things tell me that I can get and how I can get them? Whether it's a relationship or money, stuff like that. A lot of times it's all about obtaining for people. And what they don't realize is in order to get things, you have to turn inward. And tarot is there to explain to us how we turn inward and where to look for things. So I turn you to what tarot is really about, and we come to our first image here, which is the 2 cards, the Hermit and Temperance. I would say these are the 2 main points of tarot. The Hermit is all about turning inward, finding your inner light. Now, this is the Rider-Waite Smith. Classically called the Rider-Waite, but Pamela Smith did not get credit. So I call it the Rider-Waite Smith. As you can see in the Hermit, in his lantern, inside the lantern is light, and it is the 6-pointed star. So when we talk about the 6-pointed star, what it is a compact. You hear it a lot in Hermetic circles as the term as above, so below. And what it is a contract. You also hear it in Christianity. That as above, so below is translated into on earth as it is in heaven. It means the same exact thing. So what the Hermit is doing here is he's taking some time out for himself, turning into himself, reviewing all his thoughts, and more observing how he reacts to the world around him. And folks, apologies for the he, she stuff, but male imagery here, what can I say? But it applies to all of us. So turning inward to discover what we think of things, how we feel of things, and temperance on the right side is the goal. Now, one of the things that I really follow is the works of Paul Foster Case. I'm not saying he's got it all right, but I would say it's a very good start. As you all know, that I study Hermetic Kabbalah. Now, interestingly enough, even though for my money, the tarot is all about the Hermit and finding temperance, so going in within yourself, it begs the question, why isn't temperance the final card in the major arcana? Because the final card in the major arcana is the world, as we all know, and which just basically means completion. But in order to get to that, in order to manifest all that stuff in our reality, we have to get to temperance. And what temperance represents is the 3 pillars. So if we think of it in terms of Kabbalah, you have the left column, which is all completely about spirituality. The right column, which is completely about material gain, completely about manifestation. And creating a good life for oneself is about tempering those two columns. You've heard of middle pillar work, stuff like that, the middle pillar ritual. Well, that's what temperance is here to represent. So in the card she's got 1 foot in the water, which is to represent the spiritual, 1 foot on the ground, which is to represent the material. And she's learning with the 2 cups how to mix the two so that she can become a better person. She's a representation. So you've also heard terms like alchemy. Now, the thing that I find funny about alchemy is people go nuts about it and only look at it from a right pillar standpoint, as in material gain. But alchemy isn't about material gain. It's not literally turning, lead to gold. It's about transforming oneself, which, funny enough, you would think even that statement is completely left pillar. You would think that statement, lead to gold, we're talking about inner work and all that jazz. You would think, that's a completely spiritual thing. But no, in order to have a successful life, you need to have both. You need to be spiritually oriented in the way that you need, and you need to be material oriented in the way that you need. And that's what the gold is. So how do we get to here? Now that's interesting as well. Where we start is in this slide or in these cards. So we all start as the Fool. Now maybe you've heard this many times, but I'm going to spin it on its head a bit here from a completely Hermetic Kabbalah standpoint. Now, one of the things that I don't necessarily like about Rider-Waite-Smith is they got caught up in the Egyptology of it all kind of thing. Now, in order to wrap your mind around this, you have to understand the context that they were living in. Europe was awash, several phases of it over a few centuries, but at that point, Europe was awash, early 1900s, of more discoveries in Egypt. And of course, as we don't know about things, people tend to fantasize about them or blow them out of proportion, like you see it going on right now with quantum physics. All the hacks out there are trying to equate loads of quantum physics into spirituality when most of it doesn't belong. Anyway, I digress. So here, from a Hermetic Kabbalah standpoint, we start talking about the first path. The first path from Kether to Chokmah, which is the first to Sephira. And really what that lesson is all about is we are all the Fool. So you have heard that quite a bit. But essentially what it's saying is you are being thrust into the world by God's will, by the Most High's will. And it's up to you to figure out what to do after that. You can choose to remain the Fool your entire life if you want to. Many people do, and it depends on what you want to be foolish about. But the card itself is an allegory towards not understanding how to use the tools that God gave you. And the tools that God gave you is something that we have that the spiritual plane does not. The one thing the spiritual plane does not have is time. It can't change things. Once you're done with this life, you have physical manifestation that we can use to learn things and whatnot. Once you go over to the spiritual realm, the learning's done. You are who you are until you come back, kind of thing. So you can choose to remain the Fool, or you can choose to become the magician and start tinkering about and figuring out, okay, what's all this stuff about? What am I about? What am I here to do? Stuff like that. This is where we get into life's purposes and whatnot. And the tools of the magician, again, We're talking about time, so as in your lifetime on this earth. The physical gifts you are given, everybody has something slightly different. Some people are very, very good athletes. Others are very, very good intellectuals. Many are emotionally intelligent and can relate to people very well. Others can create things either artistically or they can create things through engineering. It all depends on what you are given, and it's up to you to explore those things. So that's the material side that will begin to give you the spiritual. But life isn't just about those things, and recognizing that gets you to the high priestess, recognizing that you can't always be the fool, and you have to do the work, spiritual work and material work. That's when we bring in the allegory of the high priestess. Allegories are lessons, really. And the high priestess is there. You see the two columns in the picture. She's between the column of Boaz and the column of Jachin. The Freemasons would lead you to believe that they're the ones that frickin' invented this, but no. It's been around for absolute millennia. They, too, have copied crib notes from elsewhere. Part of it, again, Egyptology. We can go into the history of that one day. But the lesson or the allegory of the high priestess is she's a gateway. Understanding that you are the fool, we are all God's will, but in order to understand God's will and make the most of our time, we use the tools. Once you get to that recognition, you're going to go through a portal of change. You're going to go through a spiritual transition, and that's what it's all about. Okay, so what happens after we realize, okay, we're not just here in the world, we do have to learn some things, and you'll reach deeper meaning after that. That's basically the crux of the Fool, the Magician, and the Priestess. What happens after that? How do we do all this stuff? Well, a whole bunch of things, but again, for my money, one of the best representations of this is the Wheel of Fortune. It is the number 10 card, pretty much halfway to completion, and the Wheel of Fortune is a double-edged sword. But the allegory of it is it's all a mixed bag, as people would have you believe. Any one thing can happen at any one time, and yes, that's true. But when I say the Wheel of Fortune is a double-edged sword, what I'm really talking about is, half of that's out of your control, much like the Fool. Half of that is just, the invisible hand, as they say in economics. The other half is under our control. The other half is the magician. And you have to learn the give and take between all the things that happen to you on a daily basis or happening around you, and how you can use your tools to get the things that you want, to influence the energies and the materials around you. And yes, you can. So manifestation's the big thing these days. I've talked about it many times before. I'll talk about it many times after this. But in the world of tarot, when the Wheel of Fortune comes up, what it's saying is kind of, how much work are you putting in? So like, as a professional reader, people come to me all the time, two biggest things, love and career, right? But really, in a lot of ways, especially career, but yeah, dating as well, what are you putting into it? What are you bringing to the table? You can't just say, I want to be XYZ. I would like to be the head football coach for the Green Bay Packers. I'm outing myself. I'm a Packers fan. Deal with it, folks. Anyways, I would like to be a head coach of an NFL team. That's not enough. Just that statement isn't enough. Let me put that out there to the universe, and, it will eventually manifest. Wait, let me check my emails. No, the NFL hasn't called yet, or, I'd like to be a big-time movie director, or whatever, Oh, wait, let me look on those emails. Yeah, wishing isn't enough. And that's kind of when you're opening yourself up to all the various things that life can throw at you, versus if you're going down the route of the magician and saying, okay, if I want to be, a professional football coach at the highest level, or I want to be a movie director at the highest level, what tools can I use to put in the work to make sure that manifests in my life? It's not just about letting go and letting God. God, the Most High, the universe, whatever, it wants to see you. He wants to see you putting in the work. He's put you here on this earth in this time to see what you're going to do about it. And the operative word in that sentence is do, physically, mentally, and spiritually, of course. Yeah. So that's, again, for my money, in my opinion, in my experience and whatnot, those are kind of the big themes of the tarot. And everything else kind of comes in and fills in the gaps after that. Even right after the High Priestess is the Empress, which is all about love and understanding, care, self-care for others, blah, blah, blah. Right after her is the Emperor, which has nothing to do with matriarchal versus patriarchal. That is modern day fucking bullshit, and people who are looking at things too on the nose. Don't look at tarot on the nose too much. They are meant to be hidden lessons. They are meant to throw off the dimmer switches in our population and make the dimmer people out there think, oh, it's just about the things that I can see specifically on the cards rather than the things that the cards symbolize. And then the other thing on top of it, when you're trying to get into symbology and whatnot, you have to think of symbology in the context during the time which it was written. In that context, one of the things I'm working on is I've been working on my own tarot deck, because from a Hermetic Kabbalah standpoint, there's not enough emphasis on the spiritual lessons that tarot provides, at least the decks out there, I should say. Again, for instance, this card that we're still looking at, there's too much Egyptology in here. So we got the Sphinx at the top. Doesn't quite fit if we're talking about if we stay on the pathways of the Tree of Life. The Sphinx doesn't quite fit with the meaning and the symbolism of this pathway. That's what energy path work is all about, is understanding what your difficulties and blockages in your energy pathways are, using tarot to identify it, and then we end up using other means in order to manifest and change the things in life that you need to change. Part of it's psychology, part of it's energy work, and a lot of it is self-investigation. And tarot is by far one of the best ways, or one of the best, kind of like a jump start, like jump starting a car. If you get a good tarot reader, they kind of guide you towards, hey, you need to look at this in your life, kind of thing. When people first come to me, I always kind of say I'm a bit like a man of the cloth without the cloth. Guiding you towards understanding yourself in this world and in this life is what church should have been. Instead, they went towards money and power. This is over the millennia. Sorry, I tend to think of or talk about things over huge time spans rather than just a single life. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. I'll do a bunch more of these because I can talk about tarot and your spiritual path all day long. If you're stuck on a dilemma or have a tarot or spiritual question, make sure to reach out. Now get out there and make it a good day.